Rear suspension is not that complicated. It has taken a long time for Maier Racing to develop a rear suspension that works and works well and is relatively simple. So many people get confused, and I think in the last 10 or 15 years the confusion has just become more and more involved by people writing stories about 3 links and 4 links and making all these changes to the back end of the car and doing mini tubs. And to be perfectly honest with you, I would venture to say that 70 to 80% of what's out there is gimmicks and trying to get people to spend money in areas that perhaps they don't necessarily need to. Our thinking here at Maier Racing is keep it simple. Use a rear leaf spring, but the leaf spring's got to be a well-engineered, great product. Our leaf spring is probably double the cost of anything else that you'll find out there, but the fact of the matter is it works. We use rubber bushings in the back, we use polyurethane bushings in the front. It's a 4.5 leaf spring with a mid-eye pickup point in the front. The rest of it is basically our own Coca-Cola recipe as far as the thickness of each individual leaf and how we've had it put together. The biggest deal for the back suspension is forward bite and making sure that the rear end doesn't come out of the car and get out of control under hard braking. So that is controlled by 2 things. Good quality leaf spring, good quality shock. So I get people that call me up and they say, hey, I want to buy your rear suspension. I've got a 300 horsepower Mustang and I just want to have fun with the car and I'm not really going to race it or autocross it. That being the case, I would say buy our leaf springs, buy the Bilstein shock, keep the budget to a minimum. Leaf springs are $500 for a pair. A pair of Bilstein shocks is another $250 or so. So you're at $750 and you've got the majority of the rear suspension taken care of. Other people call me up and they say, okay, I've got a car and I'm putting 700 horsepower into it and I've been reading that there's no way possible you can do it with a leaf spring. And I'm here to tell you that that's baloney. So we have customers, I have a very specific customer that I've worked with in Tucson, Arizona that runs an aluminum big block, 750 horsepower in his 67 Mustang with our leaf springs and Integra rear shocks. He runs our panhead rod kit, which people say, what's the reason for a panhead rod kit? The very, very simple reason for a panhead rod kit is the panhead rod kit keeps the chassis, keeps the car on top of the rear end housing as you go through a corner. Yes, it controls roll center. Yes, you can play with setting push or oversteer. You can adjust that with a panhead rod kit. Most people that are our customers never move the panhead rod kit. They install it level to the ground in the middle setting to begin with and they leave it alone. So if you want to use it as a tuning device, you can. I would say if you're going to do spirited driving and you can afford it, buy the panhead rod kit. We don't have the rear sway bar in place here because probably 95% of our customers don't need it. The reason that you would run a rear sway bar is if you were autocrossing as an example or running a road course event, you're on a concrete surface, you've got a very sticky, full, slick tire, and you're getting maximum grip out of the car, then you may need a rear sway bar. But if you're running an asphalt surface, you're running a street tire that's not as sticky as, say, a Hoosier A6 or something to that effect, then you want the car to be able to roll a little bit to help the tire get some bite and get a little bit of temperature in the tire. So having the rear sway bar, save yourself the $400 or $500 in my opinion, and don't buy it. If you decide down the road you want to buy it and you have our panhead rod kit, then it bolts right in place. If you look at our rear suspension kit, you go online and you look at the kit, it offers a rear leaf springs, shackle kit, front eye bushings, panhead rod kit, sway bar. Write into us that you don't want the sway bar, but if you're running, say, more than 300 horsepower and you want an upgrade, then talk to us about going with Integra shocks in the back. It's not a simple pull it out of the box and bolt it on the car, but it's pretty close. It requires minimal fabrication. I try to upsell to anybody that's running 350 horsepower or more, a set of Integra rear shocks to be able to control what's going on through the rear end from that kind of power. Next subject is, I get people calling all the time asking about mini tubs, which this isn't completely a rear suspension thing, but it kind of is. In most of your cars, 65 to 70 Mustang, the limiting factor is actually the leaf spring. On the front side of the leaf spring, there's a little bit of the inner wheel well that may get in the way, but the fact of the matter is you could trim that small portion out if you really wanted to, and then the next thing you're going to run into is the leaf spring. If you go with a mini tub, you really need to tune into how many things you're affecting by putting a mini tub in. As soon as you mini tub it, then all the interior panels need to be modified. It no longer, you can't use stock interior panels. You've got to cut them and modify them, and that's more time. The next thing is, if you're going to maintain the leaf spring, doing the mini tub really isn't giving you any more space. So you just spent the money buying the mini tubs, and you spent 40 hours putting them in, and it's not really giving you the opportunity to run a bigger tire. So we've been able to run 18 315 tires on 65 Mustang, which is the smallest inner fender well of those cars that we cover, 65 to 70. And essentially what we do is we sell everybody on the idea of running a 2-inch flare. It's a really stock looking flare. It's a very minimal move. If you don't want to put a fiberglass rear flare on, then keep the metal and just roll the flare, and you can still get an 18 315. If you want clarification on the details about that, call me, but I think it's hugely important for people to know that you don't have to mini tub a car to get an 18 315 in the back. You can put a little bit of a flare on the outside, you can run the Maier Racing Leaf, and you can keep the rear suspension budget at anywhere from $1,200 to $2,000. Basically install the kit over the weekend, and by Monday morning you're driving. Very, very few 3-link, 4-link kits can do that, can say that. And most of them that are out there are selling a street rod or a hot rod style aluminum, twin tube, adjustable or non-adjustable shock, and it's not that great. Tune into shocks and tune into what the shocks claim that they can do. So if you're out there and you want to buy simple, you want to buy good value, this is what I'm selling. Simple, good value, the product works.